Today we're diving into a strange paradox of modern travel. What happens when our love for a place actually starts to ruin it? Let's get right into the top 10 cities feeling the pressure of their own incredible popularity.
You know that feeling, right? You're trying to get that perfect vacation shot, but you're just drowning in a sea of selfie sticks, or you can't even find a seat at a local cafe. Well, that feeling, it has a name, and it's becoming a huge global problem.
And this goes way beyond just a little inconvenience. We're talking about over-tourism. It's that tipping point where the massive number of visitors starts to wear away at the very thing that made a place special to begin with. And as we're about to see, some of the world's most famous cities are way past that point.
All right, so we're counting down the top 10 most over-touristed cities on the planet. This is based on a mix of things: total visitors, how packed in they are, and, this is a big one, the ratio of tourists to actual residents. Let's get started.
Kicking off our list at number 10 is the stunning walled city of Dubrovnik, Croatia. To really get why it's on this list, you have to think about scale. Just imagine a city with only about 40,000 residents trying to handle millions of visitors every year.
It got super famous as a filming location, so everybody wants to see its historic old town. The thing is, that area is pretty small and contained. This creates an absolutely insane tourist-to-resident ratio, which is exactly why the city is now looking at things like charging entry fees and even limiting how many tour guides can be in the old town at once.
Next up, we have a pair of European icons that are both struggling with their own popularity. Lisbon comes in at number 9, and the one and only Venice is at number 8.
And looking at them side by side shows two really different battles. In Lisbon, which has about 500,000 residents, the biggest problem is housing, so they've put major limits on short-term rentals. But then, you've got Venice. With over 30 million visitors a year, the city has a mind-blowing ratio of about 120 tourists for every single resident. That's why they're trying out some really controversial ideas, like taxes for day trippers and entry limits, just to keep the city from sinking under the weight of it all.
Climbing up the list, we hit two more capitals where priceless history and art are just getting overwhelmed by the sheer number of people. At number 7, we have Rome, the Eternal City, and right behind it at number 6 is Amsterdam.
I mean, just take a look at these numbers. Amsterdam is pulling in over 20 million people a year, which got so bad the city just completely banned the construction of any new hotels. And Rome, it sees over 51 million visitors. It's gotten to the point where officials have to actually restrict access to famous spots like the Spanish Steps and the Trevi Fountain, literally just to protect them from being loved to death.
Okay, the numbers we've seen so far have been pretty intense, but we're about to enter a completely different reality. The kind of pressure we're seeing in our top 3 cities is on a scale that is honestly difficult to even wrap your head around.
But before we get to that top 3, we have to talk about number 5 and number 4, two of Europe's absolute biggest destinations, Barcelona, and the City of Lights, Paris.
So in Paris, you have over 44 million visitors every year, which works out to a ratio of more than 20 tourists for every single Parisian. Their solution? Tourist taxes, and you now have to book ahead for big attractions like the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre. Meanwhile, Barcelona is handling about 30 million visitors, and they've brought in some of the toughest rules in Europe, with super strict limits on any new hotels or vacation rentals.
And now for the top 3. What's so wild here is that each of these cities is on the list for a completely different and totally extreme reason. Orlando isn't about the total number of people, it's all about that tourist-resident ratio. Macau isn't about the ratio, it's about pure, unbelievable density. And Shanghai, well, Shanghai is just about a scale that almost doesn't seem possible.
So let's start with our number 3 city, Orlando, Florida. This number, 226, that's the tourist-to-resident ratio. Let that sink in for a second. For every one person who actually lives in Orlando, there are 226 tourists. It's a city that's basically built for visitors, not residents.
Coming in at number 2 is Macau, and the story here is all about density. Try to picture this: more than 500,000 tourists packed into a single square kilometer. By that measurement, it's one of the most intensely crowded places on the entire planet. And that finally brings us to our number 1 most over-touristed city in the world, Shanghai. To really grasp the sheer size of what's happening here, we've got to look at a few numbers, one right after the other.
Okay, first, this is the city's population. About 24 million people call Shanghai home. That's a huge metropolis by any standard you can think of.
Now look at this. This is the number of visitors they get in a year. nearly 397 million. It is by far the highest number of visitors for any city in the world, and it's not even a close race.
And that brings us to our last number, 16.5. Even in a city of 24 million people, that staggering number of visitors creates a tourist-to-resident ratio of about 16.5 to 1. The scale of it all is just immense.
So what in the world are these places doing to handle such overwhelming numbers? Well, all across the globe, cities are starting to roll out some really creative and sometimes pretty controversial plans to try and take back their own space.
We're basically seeing 4 big strategies pop up. First, money. Things like tourist taxes that make visitors pay a little extra for the strain they cause, like in Venice. Second, you see access restrictions, controlling the flow of people with reservation systems, like what Paris is doing. Third, some cities are just hitting the brakes on growth, banning new hotels or capping rentals, like in Amsterdam and Barcelona. And finally, they're trying to spread everyone out by promoting tourism in less famous, less crowded areas.
Which really brings us to the final big question. As global travel keeps growing, are these solutions just a temporary patch? Or is this just the new normal for travel? Are taxes, reservations, and restrictions simply the price we're all going to have to pay to visit the world's most incredible places? Definitely something to think about before you book your next trip.